Hey, my friends. I know it's been a while. I've been busy making records and doing markets and staying busy, dealing with cats. But yeah, I've got a couple of videos planned, so things are still happening. Just maybe not with the gusto that I intended. I know I'm behind on my 150 plan, but still pushing forward. I went to a book sale this week, and there's some good stuff in there. So, not quite as good as last year. I went, and I think I got 3 boxes last time. This year, I just had 1 box, but I'm gonna go through them all and show you what we've got. I'll keep some for myself. Some of them are going straight to the shed, and let me know if you want to find one. Let's go through it. Starting us off, we've got Tatiana Tolstaya. I think I pronounced that right. I'm aware of these through the NYRBs. This one is like a nice vintage edition. This one's kind of the novella and short stories collection. The Slinks was the one I was familiar with, but there is a short story collection as well that NYRB did. I'll probably have to do some comparisons to see if I'm missing anything in this, but just kind of sort of sci-fi-esque, contemporary, semi-contemporary Russian stuff. Very cool. I'm intending to get to it in a while, but this might just make it to the shed. Try. I got a couple cool poetry things. I got Ted Hughes' birthday letters. Kind of an interesting collection of his. Dylan Thomas collected poems as well. You know, Do Not Go Gently and all that. Definitely worth having. Just a nice New Directions edition. That's gonna hit the shed too. I've got like a collected. I've got a collected one as well. So this one is moving on. And then similarly to that Dylan Thomas we just saw, Octavio Paz's Configurations, just another nice New Directions edition. Definitely, like, this era of New Directions is always so nice to have. So just very cool poetry stuff for New Directions. A handful of things that I want to get restocked for the shed. These are all things that I've definitely put in people's hands and don't have copies of, and I just want to make sure I can get them in. Miranda July's No One Belongs Here More Than You. Just a very charming, kind of very quirky set of short story collection, and her films are great. This short story collection is great. I haven't read the novel yet. It's called Bad Man, or something like that. But No One Belongs Here More Than You is really good. Recommended. Crying of Lot 49 by Thomas Pynchon. Pynchon is often a hard one to crack. Definitely, I would say, worthwhile reading when you do, but this is easily, the thinnest of the bunch, the easiest one to get through to start off. And novels about clandestine secret postal services. Definitely is a good one in my book. So Pynchon's Crying of Lot 49. And another that I tend to always put in people's hands, If on a Winter's Night a Traveler by Italo Calvino. I actually got 2 of these. This hardcover edition as well. If you know anything about these like Lester and Orpin and Dennis editions, I've got a few of these. Calvino's, I think even like a Alberto Manguel collection. They're, I don't know, this kind of era of, or not era, but this kind of collections, especially for European lit. There's all these great collections that I tend to look for. The Pantheon ones in particular are ones that I kind of track down. But this is another one, so I kind of keep an eye out for these ones. So this might replace my copy of If on a Winter's Night a Traveler. But perennial favorite, one that I find to just be like a joy to read, written or parts of it are written in second person that you, as the reader, sit down to read Italo Calvino's novel, If on a Winter's Night a Traveler, and then you realize that the novel you're reading isn't maybe not the novel you thought it was, and it's, you know, people, I've had friends, you know, accuse it of being a gimmick, but it's like a joyous gimmick. And so for books that are unlike everything else, this is kind of the one that I deem very highly, very joyful read for myself, at least. This is one I've read twice, so I don't do that too often, but I like it a lot. Kind of speaking of those series of European and international writers, and kind of trusting those series as kind of curatorial entities, this is another one. Writers from the Other Europe. If you know anything more about this, I'm certainly interested. Leave that in the comments and all that. I have a Bruno Scholz one in this style. Maybe that both of Bruno Scholz's books have been released in that. This is a guy that I'm not familiar with, Geza Sath. Certainly, I'm sure I'm not pronouncing that right. Introduction by Angela Carter, very interesting. So, know nothing about this whatsoever, but that's what I want. I want to find those hidden gems. So this is one that I'm gonna dig and keep for myself at the very least, but if you know anything about this series, let me know. So I found my copy of White Walls. This is like the NYRB collection of Tatiana Tolstaya, that I'm just gonna do some comparison between this one, Sleepwalkers in a Fog, because this one says collected stories, so I wonder if the majority of this is in this, and that means I could find a home for this one. So let me see. Yeah, so it does look like this is the back half of this, so I can find a good home for this, but just cool sci-fi-y Russian stuff that I really hope I get to ASAP, but who knows when that will be. I don't even know. I think I have the Slinks on my 152 reads intending to, so I'll get there soon, I'm sure. I've got She of the Mountains by Vivek Shraya, kind of local trans hero. At least lived here for a while, but kind of gorgeously illustrated. I don't know if Arsenal does this kind of stuff too often, but this like kind of glossy, fully illustrated, artfully done kind of prose poetry thing. Very cool edition for them to do. Oh look, there's even a little news clipping of Vivek Shraya's in here, so gorgeous stuff. Nice edition. This one was too good to pass up. 52 Stories by Chekhov. Very much intending to fill that hole of, reading knowledge. I admit to like a big lack of Chekhov knowledge, and this is all of them? A big chunk of them? Beautiful hardcover edition, embossed and all that. Nice. So need to fill that hole for sure. The only published poetry of Jim Morrison, which surely I know is not true these days because there's a couple larger collections, but just look at this edition here. It's these color pages, incredible edition. I'm sure someone I know needs this. So, yeah, the Lords and the New Creatures, I think, is the two collections. Who knows? I think that's the case. But Jim Morrison, just in this gorgeous edition. So, very cool. I've never seen like this edition before. I've only kind of seen those more recent collections. So this is, someone will want it. I might have talked about Maria Kalman before. I've definitely passed her books on to other people before. Why We Broke Up, but this is, so Maria Kalman's illustrations, but this is a novel by Daniel Handler. For those of you who don't know, that Daniel Handler is the real name of Lemony Snicket, who, I'm sure you've encountered, especially as a kiddo reading, very kind of great entry-level stuff into kind of postmodern writing for kiddos. It's pretty smart, pretty literary, especially for just kind of kids adventure stuff. If ever you can track down or listen to the audiobooks of Lemony Snicket's books, he had like Daniel Handler as a character, as Lemony Snicket's like literary agent, kind of slipping up, revealing that he's the same person, is quite a joy. It's great stuff. But kind of just this gorgeous edition of this Daniel Handler novel that is too good to pass up. Belonging by Nora Krug. I don't know anything about this. If you know anything about this, let me know. It's obviously some award winners. Kind of sort of a semi-graphic memoir, and kind of speaking to one of my old videos, How German Is It? Kind of German reckons with history and home. Kind of maybe this kind of style of visual storytelling is not quite my bag, but the subject matter very much is. So I'm very curious. Might give this a quick peruse. It looked interesting to say the least. Okay, stack of paperbacks. I don't know if I can pronounce this right. Alejo Carpentier. I hope that's right. I've encountered another one of these. I'll post it here when I remember which one it is. But nice little edition of this. Kind of just previous readings. I knew I needed to find this, but I can't remember why. Mishima's The Sailor Who Fell from Grace with the Sea. I do have another edition of this, but I have a homie who is collecting Mishima, and this might be right up his alley. So, starring now a major motion picture starring Chris Christopherson. I don't think I knew that existed. I will track that down. I didn't know there was a film. The only Mishima film I know is that kind of Criterion sort of retelling of a number of his books, and then sort of semi-autobiographical. That film is cool, but more Mishima is good to find. Anais Nin's Delta of Venus. I've sold this a couple times. I definitely want to just get it in people's hands. Just a very cool proto-feminist erotica novel that will titillate, I'm sure. And then a couple Vonnegut. Those move pretty nicely. Personally, have exhausted Vonnegut myself, but I don't know. It's good entry-level stuff for kind of fun and smart readers. So can't go wrong with a couple Vonnegut. Here's a hardcover edition of Notes from the Fog by Ben Marcus. The only one I've read was Notable American Women. Is that the title of it? Maybe we'll give this one a chance as well. Notes from the Fog. Just nice. This one's pretty recent. I don't know when this one came out. I'll find out here. 2018. Yeah, so pretty new. Nice hardcover edition. Check it. Italo Svevo's Zeno's Conscience. Zeno's Conscience. See, when you only get these things in, encounter these authors in print and not hearing them spoken, your pronunciations might be terrible. But kind of compared to Kafka in a lot of ways, but kind of that right era of kind of literary Euro avant-garde fun. This is another one that's on the shelf waiting, but gorgeous copy that I know a friend who will want. This is one that's definitely going into my collection. A Night of Serious Drinking by Damal. Look at this edition. I have another edition that I don't like nearly as much. Look at this cover. It's unreal. The neon orange. Give it up. I've only read Mount Analog. Actually, let me find it. Okay, look at this edition of Mount Analog. Like, I love this cover, even though it is a little water damaged. This is one that I just couldn't pass up. This is like, aesthetically, this is gorgeous. This sort of allegorical, surreal novel of Mount Analog was a foundational text for a lot of people. I think Night of Serious Drinking is a little more grounded, but he's still, the whole novel is just a big drinking and drug trip, so maybe not as grounded as I would think, but a sort of French avant-garde cool thing, and this edition is just too good. Hopefully I'm making someone jealous with that one. And I mean, come on. Borges Collected Fictions. I have this. I have a hardcover of this. I've read, Labyrinths and like I've been reading them. I've been trying to read them in Borges in the sort of like not this big tome version of it. I've been trying to I've been having fun trying to collect them. So I'll have the Elf, and I'll have Labyrinths. What the other ones? Dr. Brody or whatever. Trying to get those as their own editions and kind of reading them in the collections that they were published in, or like he intended to read them in, because I think reading, thousands of pages of stories, not that many, 500 pages of stories in one go might be pretty daunting, but any Borges you can get is great, and getting them in one shot, I guess, for many will probably be the way they want them, just they don't have to go hunting, but the hunt is fun for me. But for lovers of Calvino, Cortázar, all that kind of great, inventive, feeling South American, I know Calvino isn't, but vibes South American to me. This kind of stuff is just a reader's, if you love to have your mind blown by ideas, Borges is, I don't know, it's incomparable. So read that Borges. Ivan Klima, unfortunately I don't know much about him other than kind of being compared to things I like, so just had to pick it up. If you know much more about Klima, please tell me. I'm interested. I've never encountered or actually delved into it or know much, but just it is compared to things that I know are good. It's in the right vein. I just have never delved. So if there's something I should delve into, I've got this one, Love and Garbage. The plot of it sounds great, but a question mark in my knowledge. So tell me more if there's where I should start. Oh man, and here we are. If we're worried about pronunciations, Good Soldier Schweik. I wonder if how well I did. The hugely daunting but humorous novel following Schweik's escapades. Look at these adorable illustrations. One that I've intended to read, never got to, but I just even think this big yellow tome looked too fun. So I can't tell if it's going in the collection. I got this collection of Chinese posters from the Great Proletarian Cultural Revolution. I love this vibe of stuff. You can probably tell. I actually picked this up when I was in China, and I actually got a number of posters of this ilk somewhere. I'll show you one in a bit, or maybe at the beginning of this video. If you saw at the beginning of this video, that's one of the ones I picked up while I was in China for a couple weeks. But This one is not going anywhere else. This one is staying with me. This collection of Chinese posters. Love it. Stud Horse Man. This is one that I put in everyone's hands as much as I can. I would say this is my favorite Albertan novel, at the very least, if not, way up there in my favorite Canadian novels ever. Yeah, certainly my favorite Albertan novel. If you are a lover of Confederacy of Dunces, this is, to me, the more succinct, funnier Albertan version of it. And if you want pages of horsecock euphemism, I don't know. I can't recommend this one highly enough. This one it's rare that you find a novel from your area that is such a unsung joy and kind of only really treasured by people from this area. I don't know if it's kind of even well known largely outside of, Western Canada, or those in the know of Canadian letters. But if you want something fun and Canadian and not a drudge, track down some Crowitch if you can in your country. And then we found some John Hawkes. This is The Frog. Haven't encountered this one in particular. It's got the Donald Bartle May quote on the back, John Barth quote. Again, another person that I should have been reading. People whose tastes I respect, tout John Hawkes very highly. It's on there's one on my 150 that I'm gonna get to as well, but another big hole. So if I should start on John Hawkes, tell me what John Hawkes I should read if this is one. But hardcover John Hawkes, can't go wrong. This was a really great find. Elliot Weinberger's The Ghost of Birds. This is one of his more recent ones. He's like a American essayist, but he's kind of like a literary essayist. I love his books a lot because one of the things I like to read, like more than novels, more than poetry, is like books about books. That's like my favorite genre of book. And Elliot Weinberger, his like essay collections are that. They basically anything from Sanskrit sagas to Icelandic tales to history of saints and whatever. He's covered the vastness of kind of literary history, but does it in such a way that like they're short, they're succinct, but they kind of just be like, hey, look at this like crazy thing I found in literature or history or kind of like arts and letters, and they're great. He's an editor as well. 19 Ways of Looking at Wong Wai is like, I think he edited as well, and that's to me the best. It's about haiku, but it's almost to me reads as a guide as to what makes a poem good, and so his sort of like editing translation of that, he's involved in that somehow. But if you love books about books, highly recommend Elliot Weinberger's tales, and so this is one of the more recent ones. Richard Brautigan's The Hawkline Monster. I think this one's kind of a departure from him, sort of a hippie writer through the 60s, kind of largely, I don't know, a cult figure of hippie writing and avant-garde of that era. His novel, like The Abortion, is kind of like the one that immediately like is super memorable. Writing a kind of romantic saga, kind of funny about an abortion. It's pretty good. So this is one that I'm somewhat unfamiliar with, but Brautigan is not an easy one to find. I don't even know if his stuff is in print anymore. So it's kind of, you snag it when you can find it. Richard Brautigan. And more of that New Directions, that era of New Directions poetry. This is like a hardcover edition, so I have a couple hardcover editions of New Directions, but they're still unexpected. Denis Levertov's collection of poetry here. This is one that'll give a read, but probably pass on as well. Just worth finding. Touched on Calvino a little bit earlier, but Difficult Loves as well. One of the Mariner editions. I think I'm kind of collecting the Harcourt ones because I like the spines and the covers, but Difficult Loves by Calvino. Just any Calvino you can get, snag it, pass it on, read it, love it. Just a charmer. And I got a couple, kind of mentioning the Tolstania earlier, but I got a couple NYRBs. I've read Stoner by John Williams, which was probably, I would say, NYRB's like biggest hit of their publishing career at kind of I assume if you're watching this, you know what NYRBs are. For those of you who haven't, they're a publisher related to the New York Review of Books in some manner. I don't know if it's like editors, publishers, writers, whatever, but they republish kind of lost hidden gems of publishing history. I've read, I don't know, 30 or so of like NYRB's catalog. There's never been a dud. I've never read a dud. Like, they've been either good or great. Stoner was great. So here's another one of John Williams, Butcher's Crossing. High on my to get to list as well. And John Glasgow's Memoirs of Montparnasse. I don't know if it's, again, I've only ever read that city in print. But a Canadian going to Paris and living there and kind of getting immersed in the roaring Paris culture. Just the, NYRB stamp, the plot of it all sounds great. This one, I have to double check if this is in my NYRB collection right now. It looks really good, so I'm gonna give it a try. And an 80s edition of Don DeLillo's White Noise. The film is out now? There's a film coming, it might be out and I totally missed it. People will often compare White Noise and like Generation X to each other because they kind of came out in that same era of sort of like late 80s, early 90s, sort of too smart for their own good type of, it's not quite slackerism, but kind of like 90s postmodernism. Obviously, Copeland coined the term for that era, but to me, this was always the more reputable one, the one that I kind of felt a little too cynical, whereas Copeland had some cynicism in it, but was kind of like enjoyed life within it. I don't know. Plot-wise, this one's still kind of a blast, though. So, Don DeLillo's White Noise, I like it. A couple of Kerouac's, Subterraneans and Lonesome Traveler. Kind of two of his maybe lesser known, less beloved novels, but you snag the Kerouac when you can get it. So here's a couple that you might not be able to find, you might not have encountered. Some beat stuff. Cool. Rebecca Solnit's Men Explain Things to Me. Sort of like essayist, non-fiction writer. Kind of, this is her, book about mansplaining and the differences between men and women. But I've read her Field Guide to Getting Lost. She's very insightful, very worth reading. I know this one was a major hit when it came out. I think she's witty, she's funny, and she's pretty wry, so definitely want to another copy of that to get into people's hands. Claudia Rankine's Citizen, very affecting sort of prose, essay, poetry, like very inventively put together title. I mean, I guess I would count it as poetry, but it's a lot more than that. But it is a very affecting sort of take on African American plight and just the way they're treated. And it is moving and affecting, and even just kind of finding out what this cover is all about makes it all the more moving. So a very affecting piece of inventive poetry. So that's a recommendation as well. They can't kill us until they kill us. I admit I don't know much about this, but I try to, of a lot of modern publishers doing contemporary stuff right now, I do tend to follow $2 Radio, try to follow them pretty closely. The number of ones that I have read from them have been very strong. And so don't know anything about this, but it's a $2 Radio, so I will give this one an attempt. Here's a copy of Snow Crash by Neal Stephenson. I mean, I think Stevenson's a little too overblown now for the kind of things he puts out. And I can't say this is a brilliant book, but it sure is fun. If you want a kind of cyberpunk book about a pizza delivery samurai computer hacker, I don't know if I'm selling it, but Snow Crash, I think if you're the right person, this book is a blast. So, go for it. Go for it. Here's a copy of Elizabeth Smart's collected poems, and I actually didn't really know she had too much. Obviously, I know by Grand Central Station I Sat Down and Wept, easily one of the greatest titled novellas of all time. Especially for Canadians doing that type of kind of whip-smart, avant-garde homo novellas. Canada unfortunately doesn't have too many of them, so of that ilk from that time, I'll say that. Obviously there's great stuff now, but collected poems, very curious. I didn't know these existed. Just some more of Elizabeth Smart. I thought that it was a very small kind of au revoir, so realizing there's a little bit more is actually really nice to know. Okay, a couple cool ones. Al Purdy. If you're a reader of Bukowski, I implore you to check out Al Purdy, kind of the Canadian equivalent. Let's say that for if I'm just drawing simple comparisons. But Al Purdy is sort of that burly man's man of Canadian letters, who's not afraid to get drunk and not afraid to tell it like it is. Kind of a beloved figure in Canadian letters if you haven't encountered him elsewhere in the world. And this Earl Burney edition, I actually have a copy of this as well, but I know someone who will want to put this in their hands as well. The Rag and Bone Shop by Earl Burney. In particular because just look at there's just a lot of inventive, the red and black, especially in this era. You wouldn't tend to see a lot of this kind of work in a Canadian small press kind of thing, or maybe you would, but finding one in the wild is a joy. So Earl Burney had some groundbreaking stuff back in the day that I think is kind of somewhat overlooked and that kind of thing. Weirdly, so kind of like related to that Earl Burney. I didn't get this one in the book sale. I actually just bought this one new. Milton Acorn and Bill Bissett's kind of collaborative collection of poetry, and in the very well researched and written introduction by fellow purveyor of the avant-garde in Canada, Eric Schmalz. They name drop Earl Burney and kind of because they're Vancouver people. So I'm reading this right now. I'm in the middle of this collaboration. I want to tell you love, but kind of there's ties from that era. Okay, and this is my last one here. Don't read this book if you're stupid by Tibor Fischer. Again, I haven't actually cracked the Tibor Fischer. I think both of his books are in my 152 read. The Thought Gang is the one in particular that looked super cool. So finding another one in the wild, I had to pick it up, even though I don't know much about him other than they look good. But never seen this one in the wild. The title is really good, and so this is one that I will be keeping myself. Well, at least until I read through, get to that other one in my 150 reads. But there you go, just a quick haul video for you. I bought a box of books. Let me know if you are interested in any of them. Let me know if you have anything to tell me, if I need to get to them right away, if I should, if there's something I missed, if there's something that, if you've read any of these, want to recommend them to anybody else out there. I love blabbing about books, blabbing about cool books, so thanks for watching. I intend to get a couple more videos in the next little bit. I definitely have some reading that I've done that I just haven't done video reviews of, but they're coming your way soon. So thanks for watching. Read lots.